guys, this is Lance from Cinematic Galaxy here, and I'm finally bringing you my top 15 movies of 2018. These are just my personal favorites, with a few honorable mentions as well. And I apologize this video is taking so long to get to you, but you know, I've seen a lot of movies in 2018, actually more than I've seen in any other year, thanks to MoviePass, which I no longer have, and AMC A-List, which I currently have, and I absolutely love it. Some honorable mentions for me are Christopher Robin, On the Basis of Sex, If Beale Street Could Talk, A Star is Born, Bohemian Rhapsody, Searching, Green Book, and Game Night. Now starting with number 15, my 15th favorite film of 2018 is Ready Player One. Now, Ready Player One it captured my attention first when I saw the teaser, and the fact that Steven Spielberg was directing it. He's my favorite director of all time, so that really got my interest. And I read the book upon seeing that teaser, because seeing the Iron Giant in the teaser got me really hyped. I had no idea what it was about, and the story appealed to me as a pop culture fan, as someone who's into a lot of the geek culture properties, and it was such an immersive, fun premise, I thought, with definitely a darker side as well. And Spielberg he adapted the film, I thought, faithfully. He adapted the book faithfully, but it does change a lot of things. And upon first viewing, I liked the film, but I was a little disappointed with the changes. But my second viewing, I was a lot more readily accepting of the changes, because that book really is, as it is, would be tough to adapt perfectly to live action. So I think Spielberg did a great job. This feels like a movie he would have made in the 90s, which is a huge compliment, and I had a blast with this movie. Coming in at number 14 is a film that ever since I heard about it early last year, I was really excited for it, could not wait for it, and it did deliver on my expectations, and that was Widows by Steve McQueen. Widows is it's adapted from, I think, a novel by Linda LaPlante. It was also a 1980s BBC miniseries, which I actually own, and I love that miniseries, about these four widows whose husbands die committing an armed robbery, and the women, in order to protect themselves from, I guess, the people that their husbands owed, like they decide to commit the heist that their husbands died in the process of doing. And honestly, this movie, it was adapted very close to that miniseries, and it also introduced some new things that I thought for the most part worked. The film, it does have some social commentary, which I think for the most part, again, works. At times I thought it wasn't as well integrated into the story as it could have been, but overall it still was a blast for me. The actual heist itself isn't that long, but it really does have a great sense of urgency, and I love it exactly as it is. What I really also love about this movie is just the build-up to the heist, and seeing these four unlikely women really have to practice and learn and adjust to this. And I actually thought the movie portrayed it very believably. The way that these women wind up committing this heist was believable to me. And for me, as great as Viola Davis always is, as good as the other cast is, the standout here is Elizabeth Debicki as Alice. She's easily the most dynamic character in the film. Definitely easily my favorite, and it's the best performance I've ever seen from Debicki. Watch out, she's going to be a big name in coming years. Coming in at number 13 is a film that I didn't know what to expect from this movie, and it's very weird, but it's a type of movie that, you know, a few years ago I don't think I would have even liked this film, but it just hit me in a certain way, and that was Annihilation. Annihilation is from the director of Ex Machina, Alex Garland. I actually think I prefer Annihilation slightly. I absolutely loved it, and it's one of my favorite performances from Natalie Portman. It's such an interesting premise, such an interesting, it just makes you ask a lot of questions. And it's visually immersive and beautiful. The score is haunting and, again, immersive, and there's one scene with the bear that is traumatizing. And I'll leave it at that. Coming in at number 12, this is a film that I thought looked interesting from the previews for it, but I was still shocked just how much I loved it, and that's A Simple Favor. It's directed by Paul Feig, and it's based on a book by Darcy Bell that kind of became an overnight hit, really. And you know what? This movie's great. It's so much fun. Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively deliver just fantastic comedic performances. Multi-layered, nuanced characters, particularly Anna Kendrick. But the movie just blends a lot of different genres and ultimately feels like something of a light version of Gone Girl, which I mean that as a compliment. Gone Girl is a better film, but this is still a great movie, and it's my number 12. Number 11, I feel like this movie is a little bit of a controversial pick because it didn't work for everyone. Some people were really let down by this film, but a number of other people have really loved the movie. I happen to be in the camp that did, and that was Mary Poppins Returns. Now look, yes, there are some narrative problems with this movie. There are some story issues here, but overall, I thought that to bring a sequel back after this many years, I thought they, for the most part, nailed it. Emily Blunt, I never had any doubts about. She was actually what got me on board with this movie as a massive fan of the original Julie Andrews Mary Poppins. Emily Blunt was one of those people that I said, okay, she's one of the few people working today that I can see giving a Mary Poppins performance that's worthy of being mentioned alongside Julie Andrews, and she absolutely does. You know, the cast in general was fun. Ben Whishaw, I think, is being overlooked for his performance as an adult Michael Banks. He's fantastic in the film. And, you know, the music, the movie, I can tell, such love is put into it, such care, even if they didn't always knock it out of the park. I don't care for Meryl Streep's part in the film, but almost every other part, I had a huge smile on my face. I was emotionally moved. Seeing the visuals again, the animation live-action combo, seeing, you know, for example, Mary Poppins taking the kids down into this, making the bathtub like a portal to this underwater world. I used to imagine doing stuff like that as a kid, so that just gave me a huge smile on my face. The songs I actually thought were very good. I think they have the misfortune of being stacked against the classic Sherman Brothers song from the original, and obviously they're not going to quite come up to those, but I still think there's some very good songs here. And the actual musical score is beautiful and fantastic, and personally I was right on board when I saw the old school opening credits with that old school overture that plays at the beginning. I love this movie, and that's why it's my number 11. Coming in at number 10, this is a film that it's the latest running in a franchise that honestly long lost me. That's Bumblebee. Bumblebee is a film, it's the 6th film in the live-action Transformers series, but the first one I had watched since Revenge of the Fallen, which I hated. I did like the original Michael Bay Transformers, but honestly Bumblebee is better than all of them. And, you know, a lot of that is thanks to the director, Travis Knight. It's not Michael Bay. You've got Christina Hodson as the writer, so you've got good writing, good directing, and you've got Haley Steinfeld, as a result, very talented actress, is able to give a great performance here. Because Shia LaBeouf is a great actor, but he just couldn't give a great performance with that material because he was barely a character. But Haley Steinfeld as Charlie Watson, she is a compelling character, and her relationship with Bumblebee, who's also a compelling character this time around, is what really propels this movie forward. And so much of the movie works, and there are a few things that, like John Cena's hit or miss, but overall it all really works for me. The action is easy to follow. The classic G1 designs really translate well here. And in this movie, yes, it's like E.T. and Iron Giant combined, but that's not a bad thing for me. I think that's a great blueprint for a film like this moving forward. And I'm pretty sure, regardless of what anyone says, that this is a reboot. Coming in at number 9, this is a film that, upon the trailers, I thought it looked interesting, but nothing prepared me for how much I actually love this film, and that's The Favorite. starring Olivia Colman, Emma Stone, and Rachel Weisz, a three-way powerhouse of these fantastic actors. Olivia Colman's getting most of the buzz, and it's very well deserved. But Emma Stone and Rachel Weisz, their performances in this film are so epic. That is really the word I would use for both of them. It's epic what they're doing here. The movie's funny, it's hilarious, it's well written. You might look at the trailers and think it's a stuffy period piece or costume drama, but it really isn't. It's just, at one point you think you're on one character's side, then you realize you're on another character's side, and you kind of do that throughout the film until the end, when you really see the true natures of these characters. And again, I can't get over just how much I love this film. So yeah, that's the favorite. Coming in at number 8 is a film that I was very excited for, and it delivered for me on pretty much everything I wanted, and that's Creed 2. I am a big fan of the Rocky franchise, save for Rocky 5, but the first Creed with Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan was a great kind of reinvigoration for this series. It continued the legacy while giving a fresh new start. Creed 2 gives us a solid, perfect in my opinion, follow-up to it. Yes, it ties heavily to Rocky 4. It has parallels to it, parallels to Rocky 3 and 2. And honestly, it works. I mean, what I really loved in particular with this film, aside from all the classic tropes of this series, is what they did with the Drago family. To me, that's what elevated this movie from being merely, what would have just been a good movie to being maybe even a great movie. And I can't even decide whether I prefer Creed 1 or Creed 2. They're both like dead even for me. That being said, they should end the series here, because the way this movie closes is the perfect way to close out all of these characters' story on film. Coming in at number 7 is a film that completely blew me away. I had no idea what to expect from it, and it has an impact on me to this day still. That's A Quiet Place by John Krasinski. It stars him, it stars his real-life wife, Emily Blunt, and it also has they also have these kids in the film who are fantastic actors. The girl, Millicent Simmons, is actually a deaf actress, and I honestly think she could be nominated for an Oscar for this role. She is deserving of it. But the movie's incredibly well directed. It uses silence very, very well to its advantage. And there's so many memorable sequences in this movie. A Quiet Place is a movie that it stayed with me ever since I've seen it, and yeah, I just love the movie. Number 6 is a film that I would have never watched this had I not heard from certain people whose opinions I respect, that the first one and this one are fantastic. And that's Paddington 2. Paddington 2 is even better than the first one, which I also loved. And this movie is hilarious. You've got Brendan Gleeson and Hugh Grant in very funny roles. And, first off, aside from even just that, the movie's well shot. The colors are beautiful. It's got great action. It's got, great music and all of that stuff. But really, the movie just makes you feel so good. I mean, Paddington the bear, he was taught to be kind by his aunt, and he does that. It doesn't matter how people treat him, he's always going to give them that kindness. And I just think in the world that we live in today, especially, is such an important message, and I love this film so much. Alright, now we're down to the top 5. Coming in at number 5 is the latest in its franchise and the best in its franchise, and that's Mission Impossible Fallout, aka MI6. This film is just spectacular. I've loved all the Mission Impossible films, save for the second one, but I enjoy that one even as a guilty pleasure. Aside from that, they've all gotten progressively better, and Christopher McQuarrie is truly, in my opinion, the best director for this franchise that has had thus far. And Rebecca Ferguson has also been maybe the best addition to the franchise, aside from, Tom Cruise and whatnot. There's so much about the film that works, and to me, where this film has an edge over even the other Mission Impossible films is that, well, with some of the other ones, maybe the action peaked like towards the middle of the film. In this movie, the action continues to scale up. You know, it continues to ramp up from one scene to the next until that amazing helicopter sequence toward the end. Coming in at number 4, this is a film that, again, I was extremely hyped for. Couldn't see how it could possibly live up to the hype, even though I thought it would be great, but it did, honestly. That's Avengers Infinity War. I'm not saying the movie is completely perfect. You can maybe find a flaw here and there, subjectively speaking, of course, but the movie as a whole, as a massive whole, it just works. It delivered everything I wanted from it, really, and some. And Thanos, I didn't know what to expect from Thanos going in. I had no idea he would be this multi-layered. I had no idea that the motion capture and CGI effects had come this far. And he's just one of the best realizations that we've had in a comic book movie ever. You know, and again, the way the Russo brothers managed to balance the, you know, the action, all the characters, all these leading characters in one movie, and the way the movie's almost 3 hours long, but it just kind of shoots by. It's really an astounding achievement in film. Number 3 is another film I waited a long time for. It had a lot to live up to for me and for a lot of people. For me, it certainly lived up to those expectations, and that's Incredibles 2. I adored Incredibles 2. Elastigirl has always been my favorite, and she's front and center here, which I loved. I thought that the story was a logical continuation from where the first film left off, and I loved all the characters. I thought they were all utilized pretty well. Dash maybe is a little underused compared to the first film, but I still like that we got more certain other characters like Elastigirl, Violet, and Jack, of course. He really steals the show in this film. And I even like the villain Screenslaver, but you know, I thought the story was very good, and I thought the action in this film was spectacular. The sequence where Elastigirl has to stop a runaway train might be my favorite action sequence of any comic book movie ever. It just might be. And that's why Incredibles 2 is my number 3 favorite film of 2018, and I'm hoping that we get a third film. If Brad Bird wants to, it'll probably be another 14 years, but coming in at number 2, this is a film that is different from any other on the list because, strictly speaking, it's not a movie, but a documentary. That said, I did see it in theaters, and I'm going to rank it here. It's Won't You Be My Neighbor, the Fred Rogers documentary. And, you know, I used to watch Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood when I stayed at my grandma's house as a kid, so it already has some sentimental value for me just on that. But it's not since I've been older that I really have come to see what Mr. Rogers was doing, that he was ministering through his show. And I don't know if I ever quite understood a lot of the deeper messages that he gave on his show, a lot of the deeper, I mean, he really addressed some serious issues. And the way he always understood children and related to them, and believed that he wanted everybody to know that they're special for just being who they are. It's a message that, I mean, again, you know, and that going along with one of my points on Paddington 2 of kindness. In the times we live in today especially, whatever side politically or whatever you fall on, this is such an important message for us to embrace. Just be kind to one another. Even if you disagree on something, just be kind to each other. I mean, all that aside, this is just a very well-made documentary, and again, it's so high here because it impacted me emotionally more than almost anything else I saw last year. Now, coming in at number 1 was my biggest surprise of last year. I thought when I saw the trailers, this would probably be decent. I thought it would be disposable, however, but it certainly wasn't. I was very wrong on that. And that was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now, Spider-Man has always been my favorite superhero since I was about 8 years old. The Peter Parker iteration, anyway. I didn't know a whole lot about Miles Morales, but coming out of this film, I'm a big Miles Morales fan. This is such a great origin story for this character presented on film. and all the cast is great. There's so many colorful characters like Spider-Gwen, Peter Porker, my favorite noir Spider-Man, and Penny Parker. And Aunt May in this film is the best, the coolest Aunt May has ever been in any Spider-Man film. But this movie does so much right. It just does so much right, and it has my favorite swinging sequence of any of the films. It's my favorite sequence of any superhero movie ever. I mean, it really is. And this is my favorite Spider-Man movie. I'll eventually make a video where I rank all of them. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my list. Feel free to just discuss it civilly with me. I'm perfectly open to disagreeing, but just remember that we're all film fans here. Anyway, thanks for watching, and this is Lance from Cinematic Galaxy, signing off.